I do want to say this congregational meeting is going to be exciting. Exciting things are happening, and you really need to be there. Exciting things have happened since last night that I want to tell you about, but I'm saving it so you'll come. Okay, so really exciting stuff. All right, so last night Amanda was frying burgers on the stove on the skillet because it was way too hot to be standing over a grill, and Abe was counting up his lemonade stand money. And I started scrolling the streaming apps, and normally we'd throw on like a baseball game or something like that, you know. But I stumbled on this fairly new documentary on Christopher Reeve, you know, Superman. And I don't recommend the documentary to everybody. It's got some regrettable things in it, but we watched it. And so we watched Christopher Reeve's ascent from these little off-Broadway plays to his cape and tights. We watched the moment, too, that everything changed for him. One fall, one bad landing, and it changed his life and the lives of everyone he loved forever. They said in the documentary if he had fallen just a fraction of an inch differently, he'd have gotten up and laughed it off. And if he had fallen just a fraction of an inch the other way, he could have died instantly. He landed in the terrible sweet spot between life and death, between everything and nothing, and that left him alive but paralyzed from the neck down with a wife and 3 kids. And the documentary spends a little time with him wrestling then for meaning. He wanted to be taken off the ventilators at one point. He wanted to die. He was alternately wanting to fight for himself and for his family, asking big questions. Is life chaos and chance and injustice, and we just have to make our own meaning, make our own sense of it all, or do things happen for a purpose, and our job's to figure out the purpose, figure out the meaning in what happens? And over time, what he said is he stopped seeing the accident and thinking of the accident as like a dividing wall between 2 lives, the life before the accident and the life after. He started seeing it as one story, his arc. The thing that humbled him, the thing that grew him, the thing that pushed him to start to serve other people besides himself. And that's a sweet sentiment. It helped him deal with his bitterness and his pain over the suffering that he was subjected to. It's not before this event and after. It's one story. It's me. It's my life. I'm the same person. I'm more than my physicality. But that still doesn't change the reality that there is, for him, a before and an after, right? There's for his family a before and an after, and that's very real, and it can't be denied. There's an undeniable defining moment, and that sent him into his discovery process of figuring out who he really is. He had to suffer. He had to be devastated, and he had to learn to fight and endure and to turn his suffering into an opportunity to serve other people. And I'm not trying to make him a Christian. He wasn't. I think the documentary makes that pretty clear. But the reality is, all of us, every one of us, have moments in our lives that are devastating and defining. All of us, pagan and Christian alike, have moments where we're forced to face suffering, where we're forced to face death. Maybe it's our own pain and suffering. Maybe it's the suffering of somebody that we love. But eventually it comes for us. So I want to ask, what is that moment for you? What's a moment, what's a place in your life where you were truly devastated, where your world was rocked, where you were shaken to your core? You were brought face to face with death, with life, with eternity, with God. Maybe somebody you loved died. Maybe you were young and you were forced to face death. Maybe you were hurt or betrayed, or maybe you betrayed someone you love and you were made to face the consequences. And in that moment, you were forced to ask why. Why pain? Why suffering? Why death? What's the point? When you face the death of a loved one, you're forced to wrestle with those kinds of questions. You have to reckon with the reality that this person I love was here, and now they're not. There's no coming back. Everything is going to change from this moment on. Everything must change, and there is nothing I can do about it. From this moment on, not only has death permanently, irreversibly, and devastatingly changed the whole course of your life and your world, it's not going to stop. And you're forced to face that too. It's going to keep coming. It comes for the people you love. It comes for the people you care about. It even comes for your enemies, and finally, it comes for you. The other day, I was driving down I-69 in the middle of the day, and for some reason, we had 2 lanes of cars just moving very slowly down 69 toward downtown. And it was like I was headed down town for an appointment. I couldn't figure out what was going on. It's like noon on a Tuesday. There's no need for, and there was no construction. And I was impatient. I was frustrated. And then I got around the bend coming towards Covert Avenue, and I saw what was happening. We were behind a funeral procession. And for me, I think it's not a secret, I'm an aggressive and impatient driver. But when I see a funeral procession, a switch flips for me. I don't care how slow we go. And all of my aggression actually turns towards anybody who dares to be disrespectful of the funeral procession. Every car needs to pull off. Everyone needs to take a moment to honor the dead. Everyone needs to take a moment to pray for those who mourn and reflect on life and eternity. It's one of the few places where we're forced to do that together as a society. And if that makes us late for something, so what? Who cares? Deal with it. We all could be headed to the hospital or the cemetery right now, and we're not. Instead, we get to go to a haircut. Who cares? It's going to be okay. Funeral processions with police escorts where we all pull off to the side of the road, they're the closest thing we have to the tolling of the old church bells when someone dies. There's an old English poet named John Donne. You know who he is? He gave us the phrase in his famous meditation on death, "Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." It tolls for you. In his day, church bells tolled to announce the death of somebody, so if you heard the church bell ringing and it wasn't a call to come to church, you knew that somebody had died. And so you'd be out in the field working, you'd hear it, and you'd wonder who died. And his meditation was, it's you. It's you. We're not isolated all by ourselves in this life. We all live under the curse of sin and death. Everything in our lives can change in an instant. The wrong fall off a horse, and it's over. It's a fragile life. And every time someone dies, that suffering and pain trickles down and touches us all. Somehow, some way, whether we see it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we understand it or not, it changes everything for all of us. And it's a reminder that in the midst of life, we're in death. We have a weight we all carry and a responsibility. A responsibility to bear one another's burdens and carry one another's griefs. Okay, so here we are. Why go so heavy? Solomon, the wisest person to ever live, wrote this: "It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of face the heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth." Why would he say that? Is laughter bad? No. But it is something we use to hide and cover pain that we don't want to deal with. It is used to distract us from fears we don't want to face. Death, mourning, sorrow are sobering. We're made of dust. To dust we return. And then our souls go to God. And our lives are put in the context of eternity. And we're forced to face soberly and reflect on what matters most. Have you ever gone and visited a nursing home near the end of someone's life? Talked to somebody dying in a hospital? How many people do you know get to their deathbed and say things like, I really wish I would have spent more late nights playing video games. Somehow I spent too much time playing on the floor with my kids and grandkids and not enough time staring at my phone. I really wish I'd seen more movies. There were so many movies I didn't check off my list. I really didn't spend enough nights drinking myself into oblivion. I wish I would have spent more time arguing with people on the internet. When you're face to face with death, that's not what matters. You start to see what matters most. And if you've not lived your life thinking that way, you're face to face with regret. And regret is an every-way street when it comes to death. It's an every-way street for those who are dying and for those who are losing someone. I wish I would have spent more time with them. I wish I would have told her I love her more. I wish I would have made her feel it more. I wish I would have called more or visited more often. I wish I would have put down my phone and enjoyed the little years. That little boy was so hungry for love and affection and attention. Now he has a hole in his heart that's the shape of my shadow. My wife wanted it to work and wanted me to be present, but I would not face down my selfishness, and I could not say no to myself. My husband tried. He tried really hard, but nothing was ever good enough. I rejected his love, and I fanned the flame of bitterness instead. My kids, my grandkids needed me, more of me, but I was selfish and angry and lazy and foolish. I was a fool, so when they came over, I flipped on the TV. I spent my life tearing things down instead of building people up. I spent my life wallowing in bitterness and ingratitude, and I missed everything God gave to me. That's what people say and think on their deathbeds. In that documentary, there's a video of Reeve talking about what pulled him from despair when he came out from under when he woke up the first time. He wanted to be unplugged. He was on a ventilator. He wanted to be unplugged. And his wife told him, "You're still you, and I love you to the end." And he said that if she had blinked, if she had averted her eyes, if she had given him any hint that she was just trying to be noble, it would have been over. He would have been done. But she didn't. And then 10 years later, he went into a coma. She was on the other side of the country. She hopped in a plane. The whole family went to the hospital. They were resuscitating him, keeping him alive for her to get there. And in the documentary, his daughter tells the story of how they're all gathered around his bed at the hospital, and Mom comes bursting through the door, screaming at the top of her lungs, "I love you, I love you, I love you." Because she didn't want him to die before hearing that from her one last time. She didn't want to not be there. She didn't want to carry that regret. And then he died. Death makes things clear. It makes things plain. That's what death can do for you. That's what spending time in the house of mourning can do. It can break in and interrupt your life and force you to reckon with God in eternity and the things that actually matter. And if you're willing to sit there and be honest about it and real and look to God and not despair, you'll learn wisdom that's deep and real. And in the place of suffering, you'll learn to see and love and care for others who have suffered, but not before. There's a lot of suffering and a lot of pain and a lot of death. But it's those who have suffered and who have lived in the house of mourning that are able to help bear that weight, because they have weight to them. The world needs more people who have the depth of soul to carry heavy weight, because every day there are mothers who lose their children, and husbands who lose their wives, and a brother who carries a sister to a grave, and every single day a son stands at the edge of a cemetery reckoning with a hole in the ground and a goodbye he has to say. Every day. And every single day, every one of those people feel absolutely on an island by themselves, absolutely unique, like the world stopped turning just for them. Why? From Adam until now, every father, every mother has eventually died. It's all been done before, and yet, when death comes into your life, it's always for the first time. Never in the history of the world has your father died until he has. There's only one day in your life when that happens. There's only one phone call where you hear that your daughter is gone. There's only one moment when you stand in a hospital room and realize that the person you love is never coming back. Death is not generic or abstract. It is deeply personal, and so while the rest of the world keeps turning, for you, your world stops. Some of you have been acquainted with grief since you were kids. You learned early what it is to ache. You walked through death. Maybe you walked through a death that felt worse than death. Divorce, abuse, trauma. You've lived with sorrow so long it feels like it's part of your personality. Some of you are in your teens or your 20s and you think you've got big problems right now. But what you got is drama. And the day is coming when you give anything to go back to the problems you had when you were 15. Death is an equalizer. It does not care how rich you are or how poor you are. It doesn't care how healthy you've been. It doesn't care how much power or influence you have. It is coming and you will face it. And when it does, the question is, will you be disciplined by it? Will you let it humble you? Will you let it draw you to God? Will you let God use it to teach you wisdom? Will you let God use it so that you can grow and see others in their pain and love them in their grief and sadness? Or will you look for someone to blame and let your heart turn bitter and angry and despairing? The truth about death isn't pretty. We all want someone to blame, but who's to blame? We are. We did this. God made this world beautiful and good. He made it full of life. It's not a world that's made for death. That's why it feels unnatural, because it is. It's wrong. It is evil. It is an enemy. We are the ones who introduced death into this world. Romans 5:12 says, sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin. And so death spread to all men because all sinned. Every grave is proof that the world is not the way it's supposed to be. Every tear is a reminder of the consequences of sin. Those consequences are stubborn things. They don't go away. We can try to hide them. We can put death behind the sterile walls of hospitals. We can change the subject when someone brings it up. We can flip on a movie or pull out our phones or find a screen to entertain ourselves to death and live as if our actions are consequence-free. But they're not. And the bell keeps tolling. And it tolls for us. Okay. So why the long introduction again? Because we're back in the Gospel of Luke. We're studying it together. We've been studying it since last year. And Jesus is about to have a run-in with death. And he was ready for it. But I'm not sure that we are. And I wanted us to prepare our hearts for it. So here's how it begins. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain. And his disciples and a great crowd went with him. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a considerable crowd from the town was with her. Okay, so Jesus is heading to a town to preach, like he does. And there's a crowd going with him, because there always is. And there's buzz and there's excitement, because when Jesus goes somewhere to do things, they're great things that are happening. It's an exciting time. As they approach the town, though, what happens? The bell is tolling. There's a funeral procession. Cars are pulled off on the side of the road. And there's a woman. This isn't the first time she's done this. She's walking behind a coffin. She's done it before when she buried her husband, but now she's walking behind the coffin that carries her only son. Loss on loss. Grief on grief, suffering, pain, sorrow. And no one in this crowd of people knows who this woman is. But just the people on the side of the road as you're coming into town. You stop. What do? Like if you're in the crowd. You stop, you take your hat off, avert your eyes, pretend to care about somebody you don't know. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." Jesus was there. He saw her. He saw the woman, the widow, not the funeral, not the coffin, not the procession. He saw the woman. He saw her pain and her grief and her sorrow. He saw someone who had lost everything. She'd lost her husband, her man, her rock, years of companionship, years of shared joys and sorrows, and now she had just lost the one son that God had given her. The son she raised, the son she poured her life into was being carried to a grave. She was going to be alone, without anybody to protect her, provide for her, care for her as she grows old. Nobody to be there for her. And Jesus saw her and entered right into her grief and her pain and had compassion on her. The word in Greek for compassion, when you see it, it's not a polite, so sorry for your loss. It means your insides are twisted up. He felt it. He felt it in his gut. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." This is Jesus. So what does Jesus do? He stops. Nobody has asked him for anything. No one has appealed to him. No one has come begging for his help. This isn't like the centurion sending messages. This woman probably doesn't know who he is or what this crowd is about. She may not even see them. She's got the coffin, she's got her grief, she's got her tears. But Jesus sees her. He sees her pain and he decides he is going to step in. He is not going to wait for anyone to find him or ask. He sees her, he loves her, and so he acts because that's who he is and that's what he does. He walks straight into the road, right into the path of death, and he stops it. That's what he came to do. That's the mission. That's the job. He came to destroy death. He hates death. He hates sin, he hates death, and he came to destroy them and reverse the curse that has plagued us since our first father, Adam. He came to stand between the consequences of sin and the people he loves. That's who he is. He is not content to observe your sorrow from a distance. He moves toward it, he enters into it, and he carries it. Not because you asked for it, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it, but because he loves sinners, and he is full of grace and mercy and compassion. So he comes. He came up and touched the bier, and the bearers stood still, and he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." So imagine, these people are mourning and grieving. Jesus steps right into the middle of all of it. He reaches out and he lays his hand on the bier, on the coffin, that's wooden pallet that they're using to carry him. It's a shocking thing to do. If you touch something associated with death, you're supposed to be ceremonially unclean. It's not something that you do. It defiles you. But Jesus doesn't care because death doesn't defile him. He can't be contaminated by the touch of death. It works the other way around. Darkness doesn't overcome light. Death does not overcome life, not in the end. So when the Lord of life lays his hand on death, death retreats. And then he speaks. And it is not a prayer, it's not a ritual, it's not a speech, it's not a hope, it is a direct command. Young man, I say to you, arise. Let there be light, and there was light. Same voice, same power. Young man, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak. And Jesus gave him to his mother. When Jesus speaks, things happen. Light shines in the darkness. The blind see, the lame walk, and the dead are raised. This is an act of compassion on one woman, and it is a statement, a declaration that Jesus is doing exactly what he came to do. He's showing us what he came for. In that moment, the veil was stripped back like it had not been stripped back before. To heal is one thing. To raise the dead is something altogether different. And everybody in that moment knows it. There's no question what just happened. They feel it. Fear seized them all. Right? That's what would happen, right? You would be terrified. Fear seized them all. And they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has risen among us. God has visited his people." They are frozen. They are seized by fear. And it is a holy fear. It is the deep, unsettling awareness. They are in the presence of somebody who is not like them. They don't belong. They don't fit. They're exposed. Jesus is other than them. He is holy. It's what the disciples felt when Jesus calms the storm. He rebukes the wind and the waves. And they stop, and they say, "Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" It's what Isaiah felt when he saw the Lord high and lifted up in the temple and cried out, "Woe is me, I am ruined." They saw the power of God. They saw the glory of Jesus revealed. So the people glorify God and they try to make sense of it. A great prophet has risen up among us. God has visited his people. Nothing like this has been seen since the days of Elijah and Elisha. They're the only other prophets to raise the dead by the power of God, except Elijah and Elisha had to pray and ask God to act. Jesus doesn't pray for God to act. Jesus acts. Jesus commands. He speaks because Jesus is God himself. God is visiting his people. God himself, clothed in human flesh, walked into this little town and he confronted death face to face. And in that moment, he revealed why he came. He did not come simply to heal a few people here and there. He came to destroy death itself. He did not come merely to comfort those who grieve. He came to wipe away every tear. He didn't come to ease the pain of the curse. He came to reverse the curse. And the good news is that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. He has not changed. He still sees pain and grief and sorrow and has compassion. He still steps into the middle of it and speaks life. And there's more death in the world than the kind that puts bodies in the ground. There's the death of a marriage, the death of a friendship, the death of innocence, the death of hope, the grief of betrayal, the ache of abuse, the loneliness of divorce, the shame of sin that you can't undo. Everyone has places in our lives that are cold, lifeless, and buried. And into those places, Jesus still speaks. Arise. Story in Nain's not the whole story. It's signposts pointing to the day when Jesus is going to face death himself. Not someone else's, but his own. That young man is not just this woman's son, he's a picture of us. We come into this world dead in our sin, unable to save ourselves, and unless Jesus steps in, the procession only ends one way: judgment and hell. But Jesus does step in. He does interrupt. He speaks life into cold, dead hearts, and he makes us new. But before he could interrupt our funerals, he had to walk into his own. Before he could hand his son back to his mother, he had to let the Father hand him over to the cross. At Calvary, the Lord of life let death swallow him whole, and he carried our sin, our guilt, our curse, our grief all the way to the grave. He was the only truly innocent one, and he took the penalty every guilty one of us deserved. And then, 3 days later, the voice that called the young man out of death in Nain called himself out of the tomb. He got up and walked out. His resurrection is the guarantee that all who belong to him are going to rise too. And the curse is broken. Death is and will be undone. The funeral processions will end forever. John 5 says, all who are in their graves will hear his voice and come out. The voice that interrupted one funeral in Nain will interrupt every funeral. And Revelation 21 says he will wipe away every tear from every eye, and death shall be no more. It is the last enemy, and he came to destroy it. He is the same yesterday and today and forever. And that means that Jesus, who saw the widow and had compassion on her, who spoke life to her son, hasn't changed. He still sees you. He still cares. He still moves toward you, and he still speaks life into places that have been dead for a long time. So, where are you in the story? Are you in the place of the widow, overwhelmed by grief and feeling alone and not sure how you'll make it? Are you in the place of the son, spiritually dead, needing to hear the voice of Jesus to awaken your heart? Are you in the crowd, close enough to watch, but not close enough to trust him? Wherever you are, the invitation is the same. Hear his voice, trust him. Come to him with your grief and with your guilt and with your fears, and let him interrupt your death with his life. Don't leave here thinking this is a sweet story about something Jesus did a long time ago. It's that. It's very sweet. But it is a revelation of who he is and what he came to do and what he will do again. And it teaches us that he came to see you. He came to have compassion on you, to stand in the road in front of your death and say, I say to you, arise. And if you belong to him, that word is not just for now, it's forever. When the last day comes, you will hear his voice again and you will rise and you will face God. So worship him now, trust him now, live for him now. Because the last word over your life will not be death. Jesus has the last word. He secured it as he hung from the cross with his own final words, it is finished. And that poet, John Donne, the one who gave us that phrase, ask not for whom the bell tolls, wrote another poem called Death Be Not Proud. This is the last line of the poem. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. The last enemy to be defeated is death. It does not get the last word. The last word spoken over your life, if you belong to Jesus, will be his voice saying, I say to you, arise. Let's pray. Father, I pray that you would speak life into the dead, hard, cold parts of our souls, that you would bring us face to face with eternity so that we can learn wisdom. And I pray that you would see us where we are and have compassion. Draw near to us. Draw near to every broken heart here, and for the hearts that are not broken, break them. Help us to see you as you are, to see ourselves as we are, to reckon with life, with sin, and with death, with honesty, so that we can have the privilege and joy of hearing Jesus call us from our graves, so we can live our lives in a way that honors you, brings you glory, and focuses on what matters most. We ask it in Jesus' name, amen.